This episode of the Fun Ideas podcast is dedicated to the memory of Paul Marangeli, who died this past week. He was featured on episode number 40 of this podcast, and I encourage you to go back and listen to this episode and find out what a remarkable person he was. And now, on with the show. Fun Ideas Productions presents the Fun Ideas Podcast.
This is the Slow Poisoner. I come to you from the future with these words of warning.
It's a hot horror planet. 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 Living in science fiction, past the point of no returning. We got high on gasoline, and we blew the scene.
Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and welcome to Fun Ideas Podcast number 91. This episode is sponsored by the fine folks at Lee's Comics. Attention comic book fans, Lee's Comics of Mountain View, California has closed. But here's the good news. Lee's Comics eBay store is still going strong with over 10,000 vintage comics, the majority of which are now on sale, for half off. Choose from Lee's huge stock of golden, silver, bronze, and modern age comics, and specializing in Silver Age Marvel titles. You can count on friendly service, accurate grading, and quick, secure shipping backed by a money-back guarantee. To check out Lee's eBay store, go to eBay. Click Advanced Search to the left of the search bar, scroll down to Sellers, and enter Lee's Comics Inc., period. That's LeesComics Inc., period. Don't forget the period. Lee's Comics is shipping daily with no delays. New items daily. Mention the Fun Ideas podcast and get a free bonus gift.
Long title, Looking for the Good Times, Examining the Monkey Song One by One, by Michael A. Ventrella and Mark Arnold. A book that examines each song, gives lots of details about each song and our own personal opinions. You can find this book on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and anywhere where good books are being sold. Our webpage is wordpress.monkeys.com, where you can see many of the songs and give your own opinions of them. And we will be discussing this more on Zilch.
Hey Michael, it says here we've written another book about the monkeys. Wasn't the first one enough?
Not at all, Mark. Our original book, Looking for the Good Times, Examining the Monkey Songs One by One, was very successful, but only covered half the story.
Which half?
The group half. Our new book, Headquartered, A Timeline of the Monkeys' Solo Years, covers the solo half.
Who knew the monkeys record so many solo albums?
Not only that, but this book covers all of their solo projects, including stage shows, horse racing, running record labels, directing and starring in TV shows and movies, voice acting, and jail.
Jail? Did the monkeys go to jail?
You have to read the book to find out.
You sold me. Have you sold them?
Who's them?
Those people out there listening to this.
Well, listen to this. This book has discographies, photos, and other information about the Prefab Four, Mickey, Davey, Peter, and Mike, the Solo Monkeys, plus another nifty cover by Scott Shaw.
Wow, he did our last cover. And this one's equally good. Where can you get this masterpiece?
Announcer.
Announcer? That's me. Get Headquartered, a timeline of the monkey solo years, written by Michael A. Ventrella and Mark Arnold. Those two guys. It's available in hardback, paperback, or ebook from BearManorMedia.com or from Amazon. Get your copies today.
Cool. I'm going to get one today. The Warren Kremer book is now being laid out again after a long delay. And I'm still working on my Disney and Mad books and an article about Popeye. Today we feature the second part of the interview with our guest Jerry Beck. There's also a video version of the complete interview available on YouTube, so please check that out. Well, some things I don't think exist anymore. Like, I wrote about in the Total Television book, they did the pilot apparently for the Colossal show, and apparently Terry Toons did it. I've asked Ralph Bakshi years ago about that, and he says, I don't know. You know, and nobody else seems to know about it. So it might not have been done for Terry Toons. I don't know, but you know, there's a comic book and that's it. But you know, that's an example. It's like it just seems weird. It's just kind of
I predict it's in a vault somewhere, and somebody will eventually pull it out at some point. I think
throw it out.
I mean, there's stuff I've been running on Cartoon Research that, like, we ran, and again I'm going to forget the names of it, but there was a Maury Amsterdam cartoon pilot that we found. I don't know if you remember that. I ran that. If we just put in Maury Amsterdam on Cartoon Research, it'll come up. But I mean, there's so many of these little pilot things that never were.
And then was it you who discovered like the Howdy Doody pilot that Gene Deitch did, or was that somebody else?
Oh yeah, no, I was involved with finding.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like
that Gene was the one who told us about it, and then there was a newspaper. We found an article about it in the local magazine, and then our friends at the Library of Congress, luckily for us, UPA or somebody deposited a print there. And then they transferred it for us. They transferred it for me to give to Gene, but I ended up putting it online. Never give me anything. No.
And then there's like the Marx Brothers cartoon that was rumored to exist for Filmation, and then it did come out or whatever.
They ran in. Well, yeah, that was. I don't know about. I know it's around now, but I know that the print they ran at Comic-Con was Lou Scheimer's own print.
Okay.
And
I got it off of YouTube. I don't know if it's there now, but I just snagged it.
I showed there was this horrible Filmation thing called Dick Digit or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
What? There's good Filmation? Tell me about it.
There's good. No, there's no. Well, I used to run Rod Rocket. That's like I don't know. What's the best thing Filmation ever did? What do we think that is? You know,
story wise, I don't know. I would give to Star Trek. Because you got the real writers. The real writers.
I admit I like those, but that's the story and the acting. And
yeah, but I always said this. I've said it for years. It's like, since animation does audio first, and you got the audio tracks, and you could do CGI and three-dimensional, it's like you can reanimate them and look like live action now. You know, with those old shows. Maybe take off the cheesy music that Filmation have, but like fully orchestrated.
They should do that.
I wish they would do it. You know, it's only 22 episodes.
Well, the thing is, it'd be one thing not to do it if it really was crap. But they're written by all their good writers. Yeah. They're really good stories, and they're actually, some of them are. I'm not sure if they're considered canon anymore, but some of them are. I think. I mean.
Well, they said that's where the holodeck with first appears in the animated show, so you have to give it that if you're into Star Trek.
I consider that part of the canon for.
I do, you know, it's like it's enough, you know. It's like, you know, even if Gene Roddenberry himself said, you know, it's like.
You know, I here's another digression that we don't have to go into, but I was actually attended the very first Star Trek convention in New York City. I think it was in '72. And Gene Roddenberry and Isaac Asimov were the guests, and Majel Barrett was there too. And they ran two things that nobody had seen at that time. One was the opening of the Star Trek cartoon; it hadn't premiered yet.
Oh, cool.
TV. And the other thing was they ran, and this was all on 16 millimeter. They ran Gene Roddenberry's personal black and white 16 millimeter print of The Cage, the original pilot. And again, nobody at that time, you got to remember this was.
Yeah, now it's all common. You can,
everything's common. It's on YouTube or whatever. But back then it was like, we were all like, wow. You know?
Did you show the bloopers?
They showed the bloopers. You're right. Probably in my mind's eye, it was also probably the best print of them ever. Because I remember he had like they've been duped over like a million times.
Yeah.
He had like a perfect copy, you know.
Yeah.
The bloopers.
One I asked you about on Facebook, and I think I CC'd you, and then you never really responded, but I'll ask now. Yeah. You went to the first Famous Monsters convention. What was that one like?
You know, I don't have the biggest. I have the program book and I have the badge.
Yeah, well, that's why I knew you had the badge, so that's why I was like, you know.
You know, I went to all the. First of all, let me just say, I went to the Marvel convention, the DC convention. There was the Famous Monsters, which is really a Warren convention, is what it was. Yeah. That's coming back to me as I think about it. Mm-hmm. I don't have any vivid memory of it, to be honest. I mean, I know I was there because you know what? I think it was mainly about creepy, eerie, and famous monsters. And even though I'm interested in all of those things, there was a moment of convention overload. I think this was around 1975, 76, 77. I don't remember what year.
Well, 74 was the first.
Oh, 74?
So, and 75 was
year.
the second one. There's
somewhere in that world, there was so many of these conventions suddenly in New York, it kind of got repetitious. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
So that's my memory of it is that, it's another one of these things at that point. They were losing their special appeal.
Now, did you go to the 72 EC one also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I went.
Does that one have any memories for you? I mean, I've seen photos from it.
All I can remember is I'm not really anything special other than I know I was at the big panel that had like all the old timers were there. I remember seeing Wally Wood and all these people for the first time, and that was pretty interesting. I don't have any. I'm sorry. I mean, I was friends with, you may know the name, but I was actually very good friends, and I haven't seen him in years now, with the guy named Fred von Bernwitz. Have you ever heard of him?
I've heard the name, yeah. He did the Mad Index, right?
Yes, he's very famous for being
Index,
from back in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
He was famous for being like the biggest name EC fan.
Yeah,
he was like the biggest EC fan. And I believe he worked on or one of those big EC history books that have come out.
Yeah,
maybe
he did a nice version of the index with Grant Geisman. So
yeah, I mean, if you know his name and you look him up, you'll be kind of impressed with things. But for a long time in the before I moved here, I guess in the early 80s, he used to come to my household. He was in the cartoons. He was I knew him as a cartoon fan, but then I found out later, you're Fred von Bernwitz, the EC guy. But he's a really nice guy. I miss him. I haven't seen him in decades now. Yeah. But we were friends for a while. I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah. I've never met him, but I've heard about him from different people. From Grant, I've met Grant Geisman a few times, so and he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So.
Fred von Bernwitz. I mean, I have to say, I've interacted.
Name dropping.
Yeah, I know. I like that. I like the fact that I feel like I've interacted with most of the big fans here and there, who've done stuff.
Well, that's a question. Is like anybody in animation that was around when you were like getting into it that you never really met, that you kind of I wish I met him. The killer
one I can dismiss in a quick sentence or two is let me put it this way. The person I really wanted to meet was Tex Avery.
I figured you'd say that.
I didn't meet Tex Avery, and I had the sad, or if not sad, I had the amazing experience actually of he passed away, I think it was in 1980.
Yeah.
I think. And in 1980, I came out to LA to go to the Cinecon, old movie convention, which was in Hollywood, which it normally wasn't, but it was in Hollywood. I forgot which hotel. And and I was going out, and I had heard, it was in the air. Again, we had no internet. I don't know how I heard this. Maybe Mark Kausler told me that Tex Avery's funeral was going to be that weekend.
Yeah.
So I went. It's open to the public. Who knew who Tex Avery was? I'm telling you, back then nobody knew. He wasn't anybody. Yeah. And so I went to Forest Lawn. I found out where it was. I was dressed up. I went to the reception. What's the word? It's not a reception, but it's the funeral. It was the services. It was a who's who of everybody in animation. Hanna and Barbera. Chuck Jones, everyone you can think of was there, and they spoke. I mean, it was the ultimate fan convention in a weird way. People, I still have, they get handed out. It's not that great. I have it in my collection somewhere. This little thing they gave you that said funeral for Tex Avery, and Art Scott was the master of ceremonies, and it just says Art Scott, and it has the date on it, and it's something they gave people, and I still have that. And that was amazing. The second amazing thing, and I forgot what year this was, I was involved with it. I was one of the people putting it on, was the Grim Natwick 100th birthday. You know about that?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember when that was, but
I don't remember exactly. It was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He died at like 101, but they threw this birthday, and literally anyone who was still alive, including people from New York, like I sat with Mae Questel. It was a banquet. It was done like a banquet. And everybody, all the old timers, everybody who ever knew Grim Natwick who was alive came to this thing. It was pretty amazing. You weren't at our, or were you at our June Foray thing that we did a couple of years ago?
I did not make it. I met June a couple times in her lifetime.
That was that was all, not quite as, because a lot of the real classic people, she outlived everybody. So,
Right.
that was, the audience there was pretty much a who's who. Today.
The last time I saw her was when in fact, I'll show the book I got.
Oh.
No, I bought that book.
Oh, yeah, that book.
Peabody and Sherman one. And Daryl Van Sitters was there with June for his Jay Ward book. And that was a weird night for me. I don't know if I told you at the time, because I had to make the choice of going to that Rocky and Bullwinkle event because June Foray was there, or stay at Spurtback where I was because Stan Freberg was there.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't do both because they were not close enough, even though I had my car, unless I just said, hi, bye, zoop, and go to the other. And so I had seen Stan before, so I said, okay, I'll live. I like June, and I haven't seen her in a while.
Right.
And
I think you made the right decision, but that's
my fonder memory with June is when her book came out that Evanier and who else? Earl Kress. Thank you. I was going to say Mark Kausler, whatever. Yeah, Kazala, but too many case. Anyway, when her book came out, my Total Television book came out at the same time, and just luck of the draw, he sat us side by side to autograph our respective books. So I got to talk to her for a while. So that was pretty cool. And
it's neat. That's great.
And it was at Van Eaton Gallery's booth in San Diego.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Back in the days when you could have a booth in San Diego.
Yeah, those days. We'll be back to that eventually. We're all having a timeout. We're having a universal timeout.
Yeah.
The world has to catch up to the Marvel movie timeline, which is 2023. Remember, 5 years later, we have to catch up to that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, on the pandemic thing, it'll just be, because I studied the 1918 one when this one started, and it's like, it's probably going to be like 2 or 3 years, but there's no real conclusive evidence of how it ended. It just kind of stopped. It's like, it's like it just kind of affected enough people, and it was done. And it's almost like that's going to happen this time. It's just eventually just more.
Walt Disney actually got that flu that in 1917 or 1918. He actually came down with whatever the pandemic was then.
Yeah, the Spanish flu is what they call it. But it's like, wow, I didn't know that. I know quite a bit about Disney. Maybe I've read it before, but I didn't think.
Look it up. Yeah. He actually had it. A lot of people had it.
But the one thing that I also started studying, and I don't know if you did, is I go, what happened to movies during that time? Because now they just closed all this. And it's like Charlie Chaplin. Apparently, he had a couple in the can, and they moved the release date later, just like they're doing with, say, Wonder Woman now. So
the reason, the thing is that movies weren't what they were even 5 years later. Then feature movies were really a new thing at that time. So it wasn't, it wasn't exactly the same. That said, I forgot if it was the Hollywood Reporter, but someone wrote an article about movies during that period, and it was exactly what you're saying, which is that movie theaters closed, and then when they reopened, people had to sit apart just like today with masks. Yeah. And there's definitely stories about movie theater owners claiming they're going to go out of business, and there's an article that somebody wrote, and I think it was in the Hollywood Reporter about it. So you can look that up and find it.
There was a couple celebrities, I forgot which ones, because I didn't think we were going to talk about this necessarily, that came down with it, other than Walt Disney. And then, the famous one, which I don't want to, I'm like, Stu, I don't want to bring him up, but I'm bringing him up. Donald Trump's grandfather actually died from it, but you'd think he would care a little bit more. Anyway, since someone in his own family died from it, but it's like, anyway. But
any other questions for me about my illustrious career?
Yeah. Let's see what I had. One thing I always notice is whenever you're on Stu's show, a lot of this is based on when I see
me being on Stu's show and actually being able to answer questions.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let's wait for the next email, or anyway. No. Okay, you're more in the industry than I am, obviously. So you always seem to see like every animated film that comes down the pike, almost, if not.
Almost.
Are you like obligated to see all these films, or do you just get free press passes and you go, yeah,
a combination of all of that. Part of it is my own perverse fascination with seeing as many as I can. Yeah, I'm more interested in the features than series TV, strangely enough.
Right.
That's why I did that book, The Animated Movie Guide, that I need to update desperately.
Oh, I had that one too.
Yeah.
Sure that
one. I'm fascinated with animated features.
That one.
That one, yeah. And
is this the newest edition, or is there?
There's only one edition.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know if you had two.
Yeah, I need to update it.
All right.
But so I'm fascinated with that. So it's part of in the beginning, or way back when, whenever that was 15 years ago. I mean, seeing everything was a mission I had, that I wanted to see every animated feature.
Yeah.
And then you're right, because I do blogs, because I'm in a ASIFA Hollywood, ASIFA. That's the group that does the Annie Awards here. We give out an Annie Award for Best Animated Feature every year, and I don't know if you know about the Annie Awards.
Yeah.
But you should look into it. We put on this great event, and the industry takes it seriously.
Yeah, right.
Actually, they do take it seriously. It's real. It's a great organization that like all the animators are in, and we all vote on
I still think Klaus should have won, not Toy Story 4.
Me too.
Anyway.
I agree.
Anyway.
I think it won an R award. I'm not sure, but the thing is, no. So as part of ASIFA, and at the moment I happen to be holding the title as president of the group. I will not be the president of the group for long. We're going to bring in somebody else. My term limit is up. Unlike, I will leave gracefully from my presidency. But but as part of that, I deal with, and my websites, I deal with all the studios. I get invited. You're right. I get invited to all the films, and part of being in ASIFA and voting on them, you kind of have to watch as all of them in order to properly vote for the nominees. That's the reason, that and my own personal love and fascination for it.
I mean, I don't like to be such a stick in the mud to say, oh, I don't like any of these remakes, or I don't like it when they, I never say this. You will never hear this from my lips other than me saying what other people have said. Oh, because they put out this new version, it ruined my childhood. It didn't ruin my childhood at all. I don't have to watch it. And even if I do watch it, how could it ruin it? I still have the original. I don't know.
I've been saying that for years. When everybody talks about remakes and things, I'm like...
But the one I actually saw yesterday, and that's why it kind of made me write this down and bring it up, is... so on Netflix, they had the Woody Woodpecker film that came out a couple years ago.
That's horrible.
And I actually like parts of it. Not everything, but there's a couple laughs. It had the requisite fart jokes and stuff like that. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, is there something like that? Like, I assume you saw it then, right?
I have it sitting right there.
You own it. Okay.
Well, I have a copy of it.
Yeah. And but I mean, is there just something you just go, no, I can't. Even with a free ticket, I can't.
Wow. No, I think I've seen all those movies that I later, or even before, like I didn't want to see Dumbo, but I felt I had to.
I haven't seen that yet, and it's on Disney
Dumbo.
Plus.
It's horrible.
Yeah. And, that's why I didn't see it, because you said it was so bad. It seemed depressing.
I mean, all I could think of is, and this is Stu related, is that Yogi Bear movie, which isn't really that bad, except Yogi is so horrible looking, I can't look at it. Well,
I equate the Yogi Bear movie with like the Woody Woodpecker movie.
If they went back in and did the Sonic the Hedgehog thing and redesigned it and put the movie out again, it might be a better movie. That Sonic the Hedgehog movie wasn't that bad, by the way. I saw that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's movies I can't stand that are remakes of things, but no. I don't know. I'm sure there is something, that nothing in advance, meaning nothing before I saw it. It's like Tom and Jerry the movie. Like after I saw it was like, that was horrible.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big fan of the Jetsons movie. I'm pulling.
I liked it at the time, but then watching it later because I got it on DVD. I said, I like the titles, the main titles.
Yeah, me too.
And then I found out. Again, mentioning Greg Ehrbar, he said that they wanted to put a Tiffany song to open that film and not the titles. And it's like, Oh my God, it would make it even worse.
Yeah, it was a different world. It was a different. I'm looking at my shelf to see if there's any films that I can remind myself that I don't particularly like. But I don't know. I'm sure there is. I've seen so many things I can't remember anymore. I have to think about literally look at a list of titles from my book to remind myself.
Oh yeah.
I used to say for years the worst animated feature ever was, get ready, it's not anything you're thinking. It's that Betty Boop for President, or Hooray for Betty Boop, that colorized Betty Boop movie. That's the worst movie that somebody tried to peddle as a real movie. You know, that's really bad. You know, there's a lot. I
got it when it came out on DVD just because they had I think it was Bush and Gore, you know, as the ballot. So that's about the time it came out on DVD.
There's a lot of movies that came out like 10 years ago, as late as 10 years ago, movies by, what's the name of that company? I remember seeing in a screening room this movie that I don't recommend at all called Trumpet of the Swan. It's horrible. You know, it's like a TV movie.
I've heard of it. I don't know if I've seen it.
It's by that, it's the guy who co-directed, having a brain freeze. The Disney film, there's a guy who co-directed Fox and the Hound and the Black Cauldron. And he went off and had his own company. He's also...
What, Bluth? Don Bluth?
It's not Bluth.
Oh,
it's it'll come. It's one of the directors of that. I'm sorry. Your audience is screaming out the name right now in front of me. I'll get it later. That guy has made... He's the guy who made the Swan Princess.
Okay.
That company has made a bunch of junk. Probably Swan Princess is probably the best thing they ever did.
Yeah, I think I saw that one and wasn't terribly impressed.
It's just another Disney ripoff.
Yeah.
Kind of Bluth-like movie. The worst Bluth movie is probably Rockadoodle, with runner-up being maybe Thumbelina, in my opinion.
Oh, wow.
Those are horrible. I'm sorry. Good animation, but really didn't make sense.
Well, I always thought that about Bluth stuff, except maybe the American Tail films. You know, most of Bluth's stuff looks good, but just like Secret of Nim. I remember when I saw Secret of Nim, I said, "Wow, this looks really good." I wish I thought it was more exciting. You know. Well,
yeah, Secret of Nim. I keep thinking has a third act problem. I say that because I was at United Artists back in the day, back in '82. I worked for United Artists, and I became friendly in 80, 81, 82 while they were making Secret of Nim. I became friendly with the studio, and I got to come out to LA, and I got to meet the studio, and I did publicity work for them. And I still remember that I'm still friends with them. If they're watching, I love you guys, you know, Gary Goldman and Don Bluth, but I haven't spoken to them in a long time. But they used to show me, they would have me out, and they'd show me the first 2/3 of the movie, and I never saw the end of the movie till it came out.
Yeah.
And I was so good that they did that because I thought it was great. I thought the first 2/3 were fantastic. If you just sort of cut it off at a certain point, it's really good. But then it just falls apart. Somewhere before the ending where she's rising the stone with magic and all that, like somewhere before that, they cut it. All that stuff after at the end kind of ruins the stuff that comes before it.
That's one of those ones, and I'll mention another one that's that way. But I will tell you after you give your answer. I was going to say, are there any movies that you loved or at least liked when you first saw it, and then you revisited it later and said, wow, this is really crap?
Well, the closest one I mentioned earlier, but I didn't go in depth about it, and I haven't actually completely rewatched it yet, but I'm going to because it's on Disney Plus, and that's unbelievably, it's Sword in the Stone. When I was a kid and I saw it as a kid, I loved that movie. I love Sword in the Stone. I happened to be 8 years old in its initial release. So I saw it at the perfect time. Plus they were publicizing it. Walt Disney's still alive. I mean, I thought it was magical. I thought it was great. And then I watched it like 5 years ago or something like that. And I was so surprised how much I didn't like it and how cheap it seemed to me. And I'm so happy that Disney, his last film that he supervised was Jungle Book, thank God, because I would hate to have seen him go out with Sword in the Stone as his last. At least with Mary Poppins and and Winnie the Pooh even, and Jungle Book, he leaves on an up note, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Sword and
I
Stone,
don't think I hate it as much as you do. I saw it when it was
there's
early
other,
80s reissue, so I was like 14, 15 or
there are
something.
other Disney movies that I hate more, and that said, I remember the first time I saw all of these, I liked them, but in retrospect, as time has gone on, I've grown to hate them. One of them is a fan favorite, Robin Hood. I really hate that one. Boy, it's at that nadir period of.
Is it because they reuse so much animation, or it's?
Oh, because they reuse so much reuse of that. It's so cheap.
Yeah,
it's so cheap. And I remember somebody at the time. I remember a criticism literally at the time. A friend of mine said to me, like in the movie, you're supposed to be scared that he's scaling the wall, and you're afraid. It's a cartoon. He's not going to die. I mean, I remember a friend of mine saying that to me, and it like broke sort of some kind of a spell. I'm like, hey, yeah, you're right. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, the movie that I think, and I'm not one to ever say this as a historian, but the movie they could erase from their filmography, and that would delight me. That would make me happy. It's become a fan favorite, unfortunately. The Black Cauldron. I really, really hate that movie. I hate it. Hate it.
I never liked it on first release. I wanted to like it.
Yeah.
I really wanted to like it. And there was a time when it came out, I think I kind of said, well, it's better than Fox and the Hound.
Right.
But looking at it again, it's like, no, it isn't.
It's derivative of Sleeping Beauty and a whole bunch of other stuff. You can see where the management fiddled with it by adding the fair folk, and the whole thing is a mess, in my opinion. And
that's one that reduced down. Secret and Nim is one, and then the third one I was going to say, now people love this film too, and I still love the opening 5 minutes, is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's like, it used to be way up here, and now it's kind of like, the live action
I think
good. There's moments.
I think you might change your mind in time. It may take another 10 years, but I think you'll change your mind.
But I loved it when it came out. Now
I loved it when I first saw it, and then almost immediately, because being an animation nut, I saw it many, many times.
Yeah.
Almost immediately within that year or two, my opinion of it died down because I resented. This is what I remember thinking. I said, I really didn't like that they're trying to bite off so much here. They're trying to do not only what classic cartoons are like, but they're also trying to do a film noir parody. It's like they were trying to do so many things in that movie. And it's like they should have just done one thing and played it straight. That's what I thought. That was me. And I didn't like the movie because it was trying to be something. It just didn't make sense to me. It did make sense, but it didn't make sense that they would. If they had just done it what I call straight, it would have been a better movie, I thought. Now, that said, as years have gone by, I've grown to really like it, and I can see what they're doing, and I've flipped around back to liking it a lot now.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I felt that way at one point.
And seems like there's another one that was that way.
I'll tell you a movie that I saw and really liked when I first saw it, and I hate it now, and it's an awful movie. And it's animated. You ready?
Okay.
All right. You ready? It's not Disney.
Okay. I have another one too, and it's not Disney.
Okay.
But go ahead.
And one could say this about this man's whole career, but it's this one movie, and it's Wizards.
Oh!
When Wizards came out in 1977, and as I like to say, as a trivia question, I tell people, I go, 20th Century Fox released 2 fantasy movies in 1977 that both featured Mark Hamill. Can you name the other movie? And the other movie is Wizards. But the Wizards, in 1977, again, 70s, animation, nadir, nothing's going on.
Right.
And so Wizards comes out, and it's rated R or something. It's like a ripoff of Cheech Wizard. It's like, it's got stuff in it that nobody's doing.
Yeah.
Okay, I could still say that, but in retrospect now, especially now with what's come ever since, it really looks cheap. And the story is pretty bad. It's just bad. But it was better in its day and in that moment. But
you could say that about a lot of 70s films. I don't even think Fritz the Cat's as good as it once was. Or
well, that's true, but
Watership Down or Lord of the Rings or what's another one? Fantastic Planet.
No, I got to say this. I worked at United Artists. I'm trying to interweave my little career here. But I worked in United Artists when Lord of the Rings came out as well. That's when I started working there.
Yeah.
And I hated it when it first came out. I hated it. Hated it. It was boring. I didn't think it told the story well. Not that I even knew the story, but I just hated it. And of course it has a cliffhanger ending or something, and there was never a part 2. Right. Anyway, so unbelievably, I was forced to watch it again on the big screen because I was going to interview Ralph. This was a couple of years ago here in LA. Mm-hmm. They asked me, would I come and interview Ralph? And it's after a screening of Lord of the Rings. Oh, brother. So I went to the film, watched it over, now having seen the Lord of the Rings live action movies, now knowing more about it, now looking at it totally in retrospect. I haven't seen it in 30 years or whatever, 40 years maybe. And I'm sitting there going, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. It's weak. It's not as bad. So I'm sorry, Lord of the Rings is a movie where my opinion of it has grown. It's still not great, but I remembered hating it, and I don't hate it now. Sorry. Now,
one that's gotten, and I thought you were going to say this a few moments ago when you said this guy's a real cult status now.
Yeah.
But you didn't mention it. You said Black Cauldron instead. I thought you were going to say Space Jam.
Oh, you're right that it's beloved now.
Yeah. What's your opinion about it? I mean, I've kind of gone through a love-hate on it too. I think it's okay. I think it's okay.
Right. I think I'm with you on that. When it first came out, I kind of didn't like it, but because I'm not a sports person and I couldn't care less. Yeah. And I didn't like the Monstars. I didn't like their character design. I thought it didn't fit with the Looney Tunes designs. I thought there was some great animation in it. I thought there was occasionally a good joke here or there. It was a watchable movie, but I didn't love it. I'm actually kind of hankering to see it again. I want to kind of see it again anyway. But, I don't know. I guess long story short, I ended up on, I didn't care for it on the big picture of things. That said, I don't think, I have to see it again. I have a feeling I'm not going to hate it as much.
Yeah. And then what about the later one, the Back in Action?
I'm a fan of Back in Action. It's a little kooky. Yeah. I remember, it's almost got a bad rap. I don't know why anybody's got a problem with it. It's got some great stuff.
I like both of them for the kind of the same reason, because I was like a purist for a while there. It's like, Bugs Bunny by anybody other than Mel Blanc, and then I've kind of gotten over that because enough time has passed. So it's like, well, you're not going to have Mel Blanc anymore. You got to use newer people, and some of the newer people have grown on me, so there's moments in both. I think on Space Jam, to defend that one over, I think I give the nod to Space Jam a little bit more on Back to Action. I like Bill Murray in it, and actually Michael Jordan, even though he's a sports guy, actually does a pretty credible acting job considering.
Oh, I agree. I agree with all of that. There's some good things in it. Now that enough time's gone by, we can look at it's easier to assess these things when lots of time has gone by.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked the question.
I think Back in Action will be appreciated more in the future. Yeah, it's a little too in jokey, but it's a little too. It assumes everybody in the audience knows the characters and the jokes and some of the things, but I don't know. I like it better. I was actually on the set of it one day.
Cool.
Which is cool.
Did you meet anybody like Steve Martin or anything? Or?
No, I know. I didn't. I met Joe Dante.
Cool. But, that's cool.
And I was in the set that has, it was like one of the like a laboratory that has all these, the things for where they have the creatures are in the lab. I'd have to look at it again to remind myself.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I once got on the set of, because I'm friends with Frank Conniff, who's my partner on the cartoon Dumbo. show, TV's Frank, and he was a writer on Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh, the live action sitcom?
The live action one, which
Okay,
is a pretty good show, actually.
Yeah.
And I got to, one day, he just, let's meet him for lunch. And so I got to go to the set and watch them actually shoot, a scene. I forgot what scene or what episode, but I was watching, that's a rare, believe it or not, that's rare. I don't know if anybody thinks that's what I do all the time or have ever done it, but I don't. And
what do you do all the time?
But to actually be in a Hollywood, it was at Universal, to be on a Hollywood lot in a Hollywood soundstage, watching them shoot with cameras, a scene from, it's not a movie, it's a TV show, but it's pretty close. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know. That rarely happens.
Well, actually, that makes me think of something. Is like you had that one cartoon you did called Hornswiggle way back when. How actively involved were you on that, since that was your baby? So were you there every day, kind of like directing it, or okay?
I wasn't the official director. My friend Rich Aarons was. My friend Tom Cito was involved. Earl Kress was involved. But I literally had an office at Nickelodeon for at least a month, maybe it was 2 months. I was there every day. But and then even when I wasn't there, before and after, we were working on storyboards. We were reviewing footage, and to me it was super exciting. It was probably one of I have several highlights in my crazy life. That would be one of them. Was because I was a showrunner for what I call a day, even though it was like 2 or 3 months. I was a showrunner for a month. I got to feel what it's like to run a cartoon production and involved from the beginning. Voice Rene Auberjonois, who recently passed away. He was the lead character. I hired him. I auditioned him. Amongst many other people. And I was the producer. I was the head guy doing it. And if it had gone to being a series, I would have been the head guy or something. But it was a offbeat, one-off thing. And
I was going to say, any more projects like that ever coming up, or is it like?
Well,
it doesn't have to be that character, just anything like that,
No, well. On the one hand, no, and on the one hand, maybe. Because nothing at this moment. I'm teaching mainly this at the moment during the pandemic, but and I'm writing and I'm doing other things, but I am pitching something. I'll try to hint it without. Let's see if I can't give it away or not. It's a long story, but it would be with Nickelodeon, and it would be I'll also say it's a revival. It's a reboot, and which Hornswiggle was. I'll tell you a quick behind the scenes on that, that was me trying to reboot Sydney the Elephant, which makes it sound, in retrospect, that sounds like that makes no sense whatsoever. But I had people who were willing to listen to me, and we actually spent a year. It is not easy to sell a show and do this sort of thing. So for 1 year, once a month for a year, I forgot what year. I guess it would be 2004 or something like that.
Yeah.
I went in once a month. I went in every month to see producers there and the people there, and I would pitch a version of this Sydney thing. And they said, okay, we like it, but could you do this? And okay, so you go back, you come back the next month, you do that, you pitch it again. Earl Kress being involved was part of that. They wanted me to get a writer that they had known.
Right.
Okay, they knew Earl, so I got her. Earl's my friend. And then they also, same thing with the director. It was like that book, and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street.
Yeah.
The first thing was me and the horse, and by the 12th time, it was the parade. It was like we had 16 people in the room, and we had a storyboard, and we had everything. And this is the thing I'll never forget. I've told this story to people. I'm not sure I ever did it recorded, which is that I went in with 16 people in the room and buzzers and bells and all the stuff, pitching it. Here's the story. It's Sydney the elephant. And I said to everybody in advance, because this just happened to me 12 months in a row, they're gonna say something at the end. If they don't say yes right there in the room, they're gonna say, can you just do this? And then we're all gonna have to come back next month, because that's what happened for 12 months in a row. So back in again, and here's the thing. Oh man, talk about me having, if I ever had self-control, this was it. They said, could it not be Sydney? Could it be not that character? We looked into, Viacom, we're part of Viacom, but it's going to be a problem. It's going to be an issue. Could you change it? And you got to imagine, we're invested in this really heavily, and it's like, well, gee, if you wanted it to be another animal, we wouldn't have written this story. We wouldn't have done this. We wouldn't have done that. It would be it would have come up with something completely different. But we went down this road because we're doing Sydney the elephant.
Yeah.
Because, well, if you could change it. Now, they did imply that if I changed it, they didn't say this, but they implied that if you change it, we're there, but they didn't say it that way.
Yeah.
But so literally I sold the gang. We all went out to the diner. I said, okay, let's redo the boards. And I said, you know what? They don't want Sydney. I don't have to change the art direction. I don't have to change a lot of stuff. All I had to do was change the character. And I had a friend, I was gonna scream at people. I really was. And I was gonna scream. People were telling me, don't hold back. Because if all they're saying is just change it, then maybe we have a shot. And and then anyway, and as long as I somehow decided on a rhinoceros because I wanted to keep the same exact script and the same character and the same look. And so, and then another friend of mine, a guy, I'll give him credit right here now, named Bill Vallely. I forgot if he gets co-credit or not. He should have. I think he does get a co-writing credit. I think in order to pay him, Bill, if you never heard this, in order to pay you for your co-writing, I had to take my name off of it because I co-wrote it too. And the only way to pay Earl and they only had enough money for 2 writers. So I jumped out because I was getting it for being a producer,
right,
a creator. And so we changed it. And Bill Valley is the guy who came up with the name Hornswiggle.
Oh, okay.
Like Hornswoggle. And I went back in with that. And then, they finally said yes. That was like a big thing. And then I had this great roller coaster ride of the whole production of it, which was really a wonderful thing. I had been involved without going into it at all. But my history is pretty rich in all this because I was a development executive at Nickelodeon and Disney at one point and a TV division. And so I was working in the business and I knew a lot about it. And I knew a lot about how to do it. But to actually sit in that seat and to do it, was a really thrilling thing because you're the king and anything you say goes. I've learned a lot. There were things in it then that I would redo if I could, and I would redo certain things in it. But so far I haven't had a second chance, unfortunately, to be in that seat. I am pitching something. I guess I'll have to be Katie.
Well, I mean, my final question, yes, there is an end to this. No, was just what are you working on, and what are your upcoming projects, pandemic or not?
Yeah, because I stupidly, I love teaching history of animation. It's like a little dream job, except that I'm like anything that you love, you can drown in it. Let's say you love chocolate, you can drown in chocolate. I'm drowning in the chocolate of teaching, meaning I, because of the pandemic and remote teaching, it turns out there were some more opportunities to teach beyond my immediate area, like Laguna Beach. And I actually have a friend of mine who moved to Tennessee. And every school around the country has animation classes now. Mm-hmm. And a couple of these people asked if, they, knowing I was available, contacted me and said, do you want to teach remotely with our school? I'll go, okay. Of course, you get those offers, people coming to you. You're going to say, yes, I do. And so I just said, oh, this is kind of cool. I could actually make a lot of money teaching in all these schools, and I paced it. So I'm only teaching like 1 class a day. But I went too far, and I'm teaching a class 5 days a week.
Oh, geez.
It's too much. I've learned it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be, I've already got these classes prepared. I've got the PowerPoints. I've got all the videos, transferred the MPEGs, and I figured out all these ways to do it. But there's a lot of work involved, and the thing I didn't think about was the grading, grading the students and stuff.
Oops.
It's a lot of stuff, a lot of papers to read, and it's really hard. So I don't recommend doing that. Don't do what I did. But I'm teaching, so I'm doing fine during the pandemic. I'm teaching and doing the blogs, and I'm actually doing some freelance stuff, but all of that is, is not even something I can actually mention on like I worked on the Bugs Bunny 80th Blu-ray that's coming out.
Right. Oh, here's another book plug. Yeah, I don't have the newer version, but I mean, you have the updated version of this one. Yeah.
I have the newer version somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not even a newer version. It's the same book.
Well, new cover, right? Is like has a red cover or something.
Yeah. I'm doing that, and I have a couple of things. Like I said, I'm working on this pitch with collaborators, and I'm hoping to sell them on this idea. I think it's a good idea. I think it makes complete sense, and we'll see if I can get anywhere with it. I do have some book ideas, and I'm futzing with them. I don't know if one of them is an update of the animated movie guide, and the other one is a book I mentioned that I wanted to do on my blog, which is a book related to the Academy Awards and cartoons. And outside of that, that's keeping me crazily busy right now. I do want to show you this show and tell that I have in my thing before we hang up. So you can go, wow.
Quick question before you show it. Cartoon research. You had your friend Kevin Scott Collier, is that his name? Yeah, he's done a number of books for you, but now there's a dry spell. Or is there any more coming down?
No. Let me explain this. I'm being deadly honest here. I am an honest. I'm not hiding anything from anybody. Yeah. First of all, I don't make one penny from any of those books. Number one. Number two, I recommend all those books. They're great. I don't know if you bought any of them. They're really.
I bought all of them. There's like 17 of them or something.
Really? I'd have to go count them.
Something like that. Yeah. And they're all different sizes.
Aren't they great? I mean, what happened was this. I'm going to quickly give the origin of that. What happened was Scott sent me a book he had done. He does lots of books on all sorts of subjects.
Yeah.
And he's in the Midwest. And he had sent me out of the blue a book he did that's not a cartoon research book, that was on Winsor McCay and Winsor McCay's birthplace, right?
Yeah.
And he said that to me, and I said, I looked at it, and it was so little thin, and I'm like, and it was small, it was cheap, and it's like, what's in there is too big for a blog post, but it's too small for a real book, It's right in the middle. So, but strangely enough, I had the thought years ago. Actually, this is borne out. I can prove it. I had a thought years ago when I was doing Cartoon Brew. There's a name I don't mention anymore. But when I was doing Cartoon Brew, we actually did a mini book. Most people don't remember it, or if you bought it, it cost a lot of money. It was like a lot of money. It was a book. I have it on my shelf. I can go get it. It's called Inside UPA. It's a little mini book. Let me,
I don't know if I have that one.
Just for show and tell.
Since you're doing show and tell anyway, get the other one too, or whatever.
Sure it is. The reason most people don't know it cost something like, I can't remember if it was like $45 or $60. I mean, this is how.
Oh wow! I don't have that. Yeah.
and if you look at it, if you go inside it, now Amid actually did it, although I created the title. It says down here, Cartoon Brew book.
Yeah.
So the idea was we had this idea back then of doing these mini books. And this is actually a great book, but it's mainly pictures, but it's very cool because it's lots of pictures taken by people who worked at UPA at the time. So you almost feel like you're inside UPA. I'm the one, again, I don't need to dwell on the fact that I created the title because we had no title for this book for the longest time. And I said, why don't we just call it Inside UPA, because that's what's in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that was the thing. I wanted to do these little mini books. Where this idea comes from? You'd appreciate this. It comes from I had two sisters, as I mentioned, and they were teeny boppers, and they watched the Monkees, and they bought Tiger Beat magazine, and they bought 16 magazine. and and of course I read them because they were there.
Yeah.
I didn't buy them, but they were in my household. And I remember, if you look at those ones from the 60s, particularly the Monkees, I think they did this with the Beatles and they did this with some of the others. They would have, I don't know, again, I can't remember if this was 16 or Tiger Beat or both, but they would have there'd be a page that would say, send away $1 and you get 4 little mini books. And one would be all about Davy.
Yeah.
Right? All about these little mini books. I think my sisters bought them, and they were ridiculous because they were mainly a little 16-page book of photos.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's any words in those books.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what the girls wanted anyway, right? They just wanted the pictures. So, but I love the idea that this magazine was selling these mini books, this little extra thing. So one day I thought, back in the Cartoon Brew days, I thought, I got a great idea. In addition to what we're doing, why don't we came out with these little mini books? That I don't know. I just thought that would be a fun idea, maybe a way to make money. You may not remember this, but early on, this is even before Cartoon Brew, I think. I could be wrong. Back when, because I had started Cartoon Research, the website. Get ready for this. By the way, I'm digressing, folks. This is only for my absolute killer, have to know everything fan.
I can do that. I'm going to get a drink here.
Oh, please. I got my water right here. The Cartoon Research was something I started up in the 90s, and I didn't know what it was even going to be. It was just a company that I wanted to have in my mind. And in the year 2000, I started as a blog. Or before there was, the word blog didn't even happen for 2005 or something. But it was a website. It was not unlike Mark Evanire's website, where there was articles,
right?
And there was news and stuff. And hang on a second. So somewhere in that early period, the early version of Cartoon Research, the Ruth Clampett, who's a friend of mine, Ruth, who does, her daughter of Bob Clampett,
yes,
and at that time did limited, I think she's still doing it, a limited edition artwork, animation artwork. And she did this fantastic box set of cells from Porky and Wacky Land. And in the box set, if you bought the box, beautiful box, and inside with 4, matted cells from Porky and Wacky Land. And in addition to it was a little booklet, which I don't have handy. You may have seen it, or maybe you have it. It's a little Porky and Wacky Land booklet.
Yeah. I think she showed that on Stu's show when she was on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. She had this booklet, and when I saw that booklet back in the year 2000 or whatever year it was, my jaw dropped, because I said, Ruth, because that was my idea of a mini book. I was like, wow, it's a booklet all about. She had model sheets, she had stills, she had text that talked about it. I'm like, this is I wanted to do this for every Warner Brothers cartoon. I wanted to see this for Coal Black, or some other thing. I wanted to see just this booklet. I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And she did it really well. Paper it's on and everything is beautiful. And then sometime around 2005, this is years after she sold those as a limited edition. One day I was visiting with her, and she had a couple books out, and I said, Ruth, remember, I love that book. That book is so great. I'd love to, figure out a way to do books like that and sell them to my readers. And she said, well, if you'd like, Jerry, we stopped selling these things, and I've got about 75 of them in the back room. If you want them, you can have them. I said, what do you mean I can have them? If I had them, I would sell them to my readers. I'd charge them money for it. I mean, you want me to, because you can, Jerry, you've done this, not to pat myself on the back. You've done us so many favors. Just take them. You'd be doing me a favor to get them out of the room. Cool. I put them on, I'm sure somebody listening to this, I put them on my website I forgot the amount. I want to say $15, but it might have been less. It was somewhere, it was 10 or 15, I think. And they sold out like that. It was 75 of them. They just sold out like that. I knew they would. And I don't think anybody, I may have had a couple of people where I had to say I don't have any more. But so I knew from then that, oh my God, if we came up with these little mini books, I know we could sell 75 copies with no problem.
Right.
So anyway, Kevin sent me that Winsor McCay book, and it was like a mini book. And I said, oh man, I love these. And I said the same thing to him. I said, I love this thing. I'd love to see books like this to sell just on my website directly to my audience. You don't sell it anywhere else except here. Or maybe you can put it on Amazon. I just made it. I said that like that. I didn't really mean anything. And he's like, well, if you want, I want to do it. And he was asking me what kind of books, what would you want to do? I said, well, I'd do one on Tom Terrific. And I don't even remember what I said. I remember the Super President one. I had the press kit for that. I said, I have the press kit for Super President. No one will ever write a book on Super President. So, and, at one point we were collaborating on ideas for them, but that's about my only involvement. He essentially, and I would loan him stuff for my collection sometimes if he needed visuals. And no, he basically did these books on his own. I mean, I would know what they were in advance, but and he put my name in them and he put my logo on them and everything. And yeah, the idea was we're selling them just through the website, but he made all the money off it. That's fine. I don't know if there was any money to make off it. I remember him telling me once.
I bought one copy.
He told me one of the early ones that I thought would not sell well. I forgot what it was. He was telling me hardly sold any. like 13 copies or something.
Like Dreamy Dud or something.
Yeah, but those are like they're what is it? Book on demand? Print on demand?
Yeah.
Like maybe I don't know anything, but did that, besides the time he took to research it, write it, and lay it out, did it cost him anything to actually print it? No.
Unless you want to buy one, yeah. It's just
even I bought them. I didn't get them for free.
Yeah. So I mean, if you just wanted to put it up there as an ebook, let's say, it would cost you nothing. I mean, it's like
I had a couple of people who asked me, like, what's the deal on publishing those? I have some ideas, but I'm not the publisher. I'm not doing that. He did it all on his own. That's the true story on that. So, I haven't heard from him since the last one. Yeah. He's probably writing other books about other subjects.
Yeah. It's been a while, but it's like he was turning them out pretty darn fast.
Like what?
I think the last one
once a month, pretty much.
There was one about either the Wizard of Oz or someone about Russian cartoons. I think that was the last one he did.
Wow, I don't even know if I remember that.
I got them all. I told you.
He did the one on. Well, I guess I had to advertise them on. I had a blog post.
He did Tom Terrific. He did Mighty Heroes. He did Quisp and Quake. You just said Super President.
He did. Didn't he do a Clutch Cargo one? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I got another book that you didn't do, but I thought it was interesting. You did a book about the Marx Brothers Love Happy movie, so I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. So I got that one too.
Right.
Because most people don't like that film, and it's like,
right.
Okay, let's see what he says about it, and he actually likes it. So.
Yeah. Hey. Well, you got to write. I'll tell you, I don't know these guys. Maybe we know each other through the internet, but the two guys, I'm sure you have this book, the Columbia Comedy Shorts. Do you have that book? It's not cartoons. It's a McFarlane book that lists every of the Jules White, all the Columbia Comedy Shorts.
Yeah, I actually don't have that. So.
You should look for it. I don't know if that's of interest to you. But
no, it would be.
Let me say at the outset, it's a good book, and people should, if you're into that, you should have. Of course, it lists the Three Stooges, but it lists everything else beyond what Leonard listed in his great movie shorts. It's Andy Clyde, and they list everything, and they talk about everything. Here's the problem with that book. I hate that book. I actually like it. I'm on the love side of it, but the problem is. Obviously, these two guys, Ted Akuda and I forgot the name of the other guy, Watts, I think. They apparently were big Three Stooges fans, as we all are. Yeah. But they seemingly don't like anything else that Columbia put out except the Stooge shorts. It seems to me when you read this book. And so you're reading a book that's really well researched and really thorough with the filmography and everything is in there. But these writers don't like what they're writing about. You know what I mean? They love the Three Stooges. They're basing everything else that was done at that studio on the Three Stooges. It's a weird book, and it bothers me because I like people who love their subject. There's a lot in the subject you don't have to like, but you like the subject. And they seem to not. It seemed like they dug a hole.
I mean, using one of my books, like let's say DePatie Freeling. I didn't like everything they put out, but I'm not going to sit there and badmouth you know, the Hound Cats, let's say. You know, I actually like the Hound Cats, but, or, you know, what's the one with the roller skating one? I can't, Bailey's Comets.
Bailey's Comets. Yeah.
I left that up to like Art Leonardi and, you know, Barbara Donatelli to say it was a bad show. I didn't want to sit there and say it was a bad show.
Right.
It was a bad show. But, you know, it's like, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's like I'm not going to sit there and say, this is awful, don't ever watch it. And if it did ever come out on a video release, you know, hey, I'd buy it.
You know, you know, the TV animation of the well, 60s, 70s, 80s that we all grew up with.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of, from my generation, we all looked at animation as starting in the teens 100 years ago, going up with Disney up to a certain height, and then sinking to a horrible level, you know, by the 70s and 80s for me, from my point of view.
Yeah.
And, but now as another 40 years or more have gone by, I'm beginning to see the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s TV animation as an equivalent in some ways to the silent animation of 1917, 18, 19, where, because that animation is really limited animation. Back in those days. And great things came out of it as time went on in the history of animation. And I kind of think that's what's going to happen when people look back, ultimately, that this weird TV era, this post-Disney era, you know, starts in a crummy place and then gets better, because it already has, you know.
Well, that's what I was asking earlier about Warner Archives, if there's more of that Hanna-Barbera stuff. It's like at the time, I couldn't give two shits about it. But, you know, now it's like I'm fascinated with what Filmation did and what Patty Freeling did and what Hanna-Barbera did in the 70s and 80s. Because it's like it or not, they had the product, for lack of a better term, to continue to go and make Saturday morning memorable for generations. You know, it's like, you know, even if I personally didn't like a particular show, somebody else did. I didn't like Monchhichis, let's say. Somebody else probably did because they were 3 years old when it came on the air, whatever. You know, it's like, and so, I don't know.
I still remember, this is a weird memory to have, but because I was obviously what I call a grown-up in a kid's world when, back in the 80s, for example. I still remember being the animation fanatic I am still today, and as I was then, going to a matinee screening of Secret of the Sword, you know, the He-Man movie.
Yeah.
And again, grown-ups didn't do that in 1986 or whatever, 85, whatever year that was. You just didn't, grown up, they didn't even play it at night. It only played like daytimes, like matinees. And the person I am, I said, you know, I got to see this movie. This is before I was running a CIFA and we, you know, doing all the things I do later. So I went on a Saturday afternoon. That was a big mistake. to a matinee screening with hundreds of little kids, boys with plastic swords.
Wow.
And when sitting and watching it and that part was good. They were watching it in rapt attention, you know, so I could watch it. You know, I was just watching it because I wanted to see everything. And when it goes, I have the power, the whole audience in unison, like Rocky Horror Picture Show, you know, was, you know, talking along with the screen. So let me show you this last thing, and I think we're kind of near the end of the session, don't you think?
Yes.
All right.
So show me your surprise.
We can have a part two like Mike Ventrella.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only one.
No, there's been other part twos. And you can return. This
is my vault.
What is this?
What is it?
You have to bring it up to the camera because I cannot see.
I
see your Merry Melodies poster. What's this other poster here? I can't even see it.
Oh, that's a...
Another sparkling cartoon delight.
Yes. I have 3 volumes. I was at a flea market in New York in the 90s, and the guy had, I don't know how many volumes. Maybe you're going to tell me you have this or you have something like it. You probably have one for Harvey. When I worked at Harvey, you know that. When I worked at Harvey,
yes.
Jeff Montgomery had every Harvey comic bound volume. You know,
you were on Baby Huey's ass. You posted it the other day.
I know. Yeah, I was. so I was at this flea market in Manhattan, and this guy had like a whole bunch of these books, and you can see where I'm going. And I looked at him, and I only bought 3 of them. He had like all of them, but it's bound volumes of Cracked. You know,
Wow.
now it's like, you know,
Wow.
like, I've got bound volumes of Cracked here for you.
That's a hard issue to find, the one with Frankenstein on the cover.
Oh, really?
Anyway.
Unfortunately, this particular one is missing 1 through 5 for some reason. But the other ones,
So it's just random? Yeah.
No, it's missing 1 through 5 and 16 through 20 for some reason. But then it has 21 through 30. And then, let's see. And then I've got, it looks like I've got them all. Nope. I bought 3 volumes, and the final volume is ends with 41 through 50. So, you know, these are the ones I grew up with when I was a kid in the 60s. So these are nostalgic for me.
But they're also, those issues are pretty hard to find, those issues. Yeah. Yeah, Crack never was a big seller until the 70s. You know, it just kind of kept going somehow. And in the 70s, when they did like a zillion Star Wars issues and Happy Days issues and Laverne and Shirley, whatever, then they started selling pretty decently. But back then, those are actually pretty hard to find. So it's not a Mark Arnold podcast if I don't hold up a copy of Cracked. No, I actually bought this on the newsstand. I still remember that issue. It looks like number 50 ends at 1966, which sort of makes sense. I now, in retrospect, wish I bought maybe one more volume, but I bought the earliest ones the guy had, and they're treasured. They're right next to my bound volumes of Mad, Russ Cochran versions. And well, the Cracked ones, was that from a former staffer, or was it just a guy?
I didn't even ask questions. Clearly, it was a staffer or somebody who worked there, and they were clearly either he stole them or they were being thrown out when the offices closed or something. He just put them out on a flea market. So I lucked her out, and I got them. And
I would have snagged them up.
To me, they're prized possessions.
Well, at a local bookstore here in Oregon, I got a Mad one that was actually bound copies that a local library put together.
Wow.
And then they just discarded it. Some local used bookstore had it, and it was very cheap. It was like $5. Yeah, I was like,
I think Stu has a couple of bound volumes of TV Guide. As much as I like having the original issues as is, there's something cool about bound volumes.
Oh yeah, I don't have any bound Harveys, but I've seen them. And I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Frank Hill, who did Dennis the Menace for a number of years, but he at his house, he has like a complete bound set of every issue he worked on.
Wow.
And I said, "Ooh, I want those," and he goes, "Nope."
I have, and I'm wondering where I've got them. I think they're in my garage.
No, it is cool to have bound copies, even if it's unofficial.
Here's a story that I don't know if anybody out there will actually care at all. But one day when I lived in New York in the early '80s, and I was walking I lived in the Village, and Forbidden Planet was the big comic book store on 12th Street and Broadway, and I lived on like 13th Street on the other side of town. So on Saturday mornings, I'd just walk across town to go to Golden Apple. And one day I'm walking by, and there's a dumpster, a big, giant dumpster, big. I mean, so big you can't see over it. It was big. And as I'm walking there, and I forgot how I found out what I found out was maybe I saw somebody in the dumpster, and I sort of like decided to look over and see what's in the dumpster, and it was books. And somebody said, "Oh, they're throwing books out from the library. There's a library here." I didn't even know it, on this street, 12th Street. And I said, "Book? What kind of books?" He goes, "Oh, they're like magazines." I go, "Huh?" So I went into this dumpster. And when I say went into it, it's hard to explain. It was literally like I want to say a baseball field. That's not what it was like, but literally 6 people, more than that, could be in this thing. And it was
dumpster. Okay.
It's hard to explain.
Like a truck.
It was unbelievable. It was gigantic. And it was all junked. It was all junked. And what it was bound volumes of magazines. And I took as many as I could. I have a bunch of them downstairs. I was smart enough. Some of them were magazines we don't care about. But the ones that we did, like there was Popular Science, The one that I cared about was they seemingly had every issue of Good Housekeeping. And you might think immediately, well, who cares? But remember, Good Housekeeping had those Disney pages in them.
It depends on how old it is, yeah.
Right. Well, I found all the 1930s ones that had all the Disney pages, so I grabbed those. I still have those. Anyway, I'm just saying, that still to this day haunts me that somebody threw these away. Valuable.
I'm sure it happens all the time. Libraries say, "Oh, we put it on microfiche," or it's old. We don't need it anymore.
These days with scanning and stuff, there's a lot of people throwing away good stuff, which is.
Anyway, all right. On that note about throwing things away. All right. Last question.
Next time we'll talk about Harvey. You go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. You thought I was going to talk all about Harvey, but anyway, I have other interests myself. So anyway, you can interview me next time. But anyway, it's like, how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you? Or you could say no.
Yeah, don't reach out. No, my email is on the contact page of cartoonresearch.com. One could check out the Cartoon Research Facebook page or the Jerry Beck Facebook page or Cartoon Research on Facebook. I'm very accessible.
All right, very good. I thank you, Jerry, for being my special guest. Finally got you on the 90th show. Woo!
Hope we didn't bore you. Yeah.
It might be 90 and 91. I don't know. It depends on how, but anyway, appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, anytime. All right.
Thank you for listening, and thank you, Jerry Beck, for being my special guest. Episode number 92 will be coming soon. If you would like to comment and or be a guest on this podcast, please drop me a line at funideas.mark@gmail.com. Become a patron of Mark Arnold and Fun Ideas Productions. If everyone listening just contributed $1 a month, that would be a tremendous help in continuing the production of my books and this podcast. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The opening and closing music for the Fun Ideas podcast is provided courtesy of Andrew the Slow Poisoner Goldfarb and is used with permission. This has been the Fun Ideas podcast. This is Mark Arnold speaking. This episode is copyright 2020, Fun Ideas Productions. Thank you, and good night.
Headed home to a cardboard hut with duct tape doors. At the price I'm paying, be glad it isn't yours. Now get up, Crab Mountain, get up. 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 That mountain of crab. And don't fall back. Don't fall back.